Hi, Steve Stine from GuitarZoom here, and I wanted to show you something that can really help you in learning your fretboard. One of the problems that I seem to see a lot with players is that they know some part of their fretboard, some scale on their fretboard really well in a position, but as they move away from that position, they get a little bit more confused or less confident with their playing. And something that you can do that works really well is to just simply use a static sound, like a backing track that has, like this one's in the key of A, and I'm going to give you this and some others for free. All you got to do is click on the link. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to kind of negate the fact of rhythm and all of those things, and you're just going to try and explore your fretboard on a more creative level. So the first step to doing this is getting comfortable with being able to move from one position to the next without worrying about tempo and worrying about groove and all those sorts of things. Just get comfortable visually and technically with your fingers of being able to move back and forth. And let me show you what I mean. If we were going to be an A minor pentatonic, we'll just start with something straightforward. Most people can play this really good. But as soon as they start moving further and further away from that, they start having problems. And so the trick here is yes, you should practice, techniques where you practice the scale up and down and all that sort of thing. But in the real world, you need to be able to creatively move around, right? So one thing that's really nice to be able to do is once you've developed this first position, and let's say you've developed the second position, so you've learned how to play that position. Okay? Instead of just practicing it up and down like that, use it in a real world situation where you start trying to get comfortable with moving back and forth between them. Okay? Now, this is what I often refer to as meandering, and the trick here is that you're not trying to play a lick or whatever. You're trying to internally, you're trying to get comfortable with what the positions look like and how you can connect them, you can interact with them back and forth, okay? So you could stay, it doesn't matter how long you stay in one position, and that's another thing to be careful of is sometimes your brain tells you that you're supposed to do something, or the whole idea behind this is to let go of a lot of that stuff and just listen to the sound of the jam in the background and just explore movement. So don't worry about how fast you're playing it or how slow you're playing it or whether you're playing a lot or playing a little or whatever. The primary focus here is to just get comfortable with movement. Now, if I know my position below this, which would be the fifth position, and see what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get used to being able to move in and out, not just this way, right? We always get comfortable with going, and we move up, and we do all that sort of thing. And again, I'm not saying that isn't important. That's awesome. But when you start trying to get creative, the trick is to allow yourself to just kind of move around. Now I'm going to start the jam track or the backing track here for you so you can hear it. Here we go. And the trick here is to have some fun, okay? That's the most important thing here is try and let go of all those things that you think about all the time. Practicing your scales and setting your metronome and all those different things that people do. And again, I'm not saying any of that is bad. That's great. This is just a different approach to getting comfortable with your fretboard, okay? Because really on the guitar, we have the vertical and the horizontal movement of the fretboard. And so many people get so comfortable with being in a position, they just move up and down. Then they'll move over, and then they'll move up and down. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the trick is trying to get creative. Step outside all of those boxes or boundaries that you've made for yourself. Use all of those things. but start approaching your guitar from a completely different perspective of just exploring. So right now, all I'm doing is I'm using A minor pentatonic. I'm not using any other notes. And I'm just moving throughout the positions. So I'm going to start that jam track again. And you see how I'm playing positionally, and then somewhere in there I decided I would start just playing on the second string. So now all of a sudden I'm playing more horizontally, and it sounds different. It's more, I can't say it's more creative, but it's certainly more fun for me because I'm changing up the way I'm thinking about things. Instead of just playing the same 5 licks and the same patterns over and over and over in the same position, you start spanning out. And as you expand, if you get into positions that you're not very comfortable with, let's say you're playing an A minor pentatonic and you go to the 3rd position. If you go to that 3rd position and you're not very comfortable with it, needless to say, you got a couple of options. Number one, you can stop the backing track and just practice that 3rd position for a few minutes, just kind of getting it comfortable. And then put it back into the jam or the backing track and just start developing it a little bit. Okay? Now, if you don't know the 2nd position, learning the 3rd position really isn't going to help you that much. Start with the 2nd position and so on. I always tell people the most important thing with all of this isn't that you know all of this. You know all of your theory and you know all of your scales. That's the end game or the end result, I suppose, to playing guitar. But the most important part in the middle is, what can you use on an absolute level, not a relative level? Well, I kind of learned this 3 years ago, or somebody kind of showed me this. But what can you learn? What can you use? What can you manipulate on an absolute level? Because that's where your confidence is going to come from, right? We always think, well, we look at this player or we're learning this thing or whatever it is, and it says to do all of this. Yes, ultimately we want to do that. But if you were to stop and look at yourself today and say, what do I really know? Okay, let's start with that and just start embellishing from there. Let's just start with that instead of let's spend 6 months practicing whatever and then come back to this. No, let's keep developing all of those other things that you're practicing, but let's start getting creative today by maybe just practicing your 1st position and your 2nd position and just getting comfortable with moving up and down and back and forth. Start moving around in unique ways. Like maybe I jump over, where I never do that. I'm always working my way up. I'm always playing up instead of jumping over something. You see? And if you use this backing track and you, again, try and sort of eliminate the I'm supposed to, let that go a little bit, and don't worry about how fast it is or anything. Just play. I'm going to start it again here one more time. Now you'll notice as I'm doing this, I'm not really worrying about licks or bends or vibrato or all of these other things that I do it a little bit in there just by nature, but that's not my goal. My goal is visualization and exploration of my fretboard. Meandering is what I call it. So try that. Click on the link and download those backing tracks and give it a shot and see what you think. And leave a comment or let me know through guitarzoom.com what you think about this. All right. So take care, practice hard, and I'll speak to you soon.